When I arrived at my parents' house for the holiday gathering, the only ones there were my 3 young nieces. I received a call from my parents, who were on a trip to Hawaii, announcing that their gift to me, as a single person, was the experience of childcare. I found myself dialing the police as an unexpected gift for them. My name is Ryan Thompson, and at 30 years old, I still felt a sharp pang in my stomach as the year drew to a close. Sipping my lukewarm coffee, I glanced at my phone screen, 7 missed calls, all from my father. My apartment was modest, but it was my sanctuary. After graduating from college, I had just begun my career as a content writer at a marketing firm, finally achieving financial independence. The job was demanding yet rewarding, and having control over my own schedule felt like a luxury after years of living with my family. As I hesitated to answer the phone, I found myself reminiscing about past Christmases. They were supposed to be joyous occasions, but for me, they always followed the same monotonous routine. While the adults laughed and shared glasses of wine, I was invariably assigned the task of looking after my younger cousins. Over the years, it had morphed into an obligation that my family took for granted, never considering my feelings. Setting my coffee cup down, I took a deep breath and finally answered the phone. "You finally picked up," my father, Mark, said, his voice tinged with its usual hint of mild reproach. "I called you several times." "I was at work, Dad," I replied, knowing full well that I had noticed the calls after my workday had ended. "I just wanted to delay the conversation." "What are your plans for Christmas?" Mark asked, his tone taking on a scheming quality that made me weary. "Usual stuff. Planning to go to the family home like always," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Well, this year is going to be a bit different," he said, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What do you mean?" I frowned, sensing trouble. "Uncle David has come up with a fantastic idea. All of us adults are going on a cruise in the Caribbean from Christmas to New Year's Day. Isn't that great?" While he said all of us, it was clear I was not included. "Me too?" I checked, my heart sinking. "Oh, about that," Mark hesitated. "You have a different important role." My stomach tightened further. "What role?" "Looking after Lily, Emma, and Sophie." He named my nieces, who were still too young for a cruise. "Wait, so you want me to look after an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old for an entire week while everyone else is sunbathing and sipping cocktails in the Caribbean?" "Don't put it like that. You get along well with the kids, and you don't have plans for Christmas anyway, right? Plus, you don't have your own kids, so this will be a good experience for you." A shiver of anger coursed through me. "Dad, I have my own life. I have plans with friends and work deadlines." "But it's for the family," he insisted. "Besides, the tickets are already bought. They're non-refundable." I fought the urge to hang up, maintaining my composure. "When were you planning to consult me? Or did you just assume I would agree? Of course I didn't think you'd say no. You've always been a good son, always doing everything for the family." "Dad, I'm not a child anymore," I said calmly. "I have the right to control my own time. I'm saying no." There was a pause on the other end. "Ryan, don't just think about yourself. This is supposed to be a special vacation for the whole family." "Except for me," I retorted. "I can't believe your selfishness is ruining everyone's fun plans." "Selfish? You're the ones who planned this without consulting me, expecting me to be happy to sacrifice a whole week. Isn't that selfish? That's enough. I'll get your mother to call you. You'll listen to her." Before the call ended, I declared, "If I'm expected to babysit, I won't be coming home for Christmas." It was unclear if my words reached my father. That night, I felt restless in my apartment. My phone rang continuously with calls from my parents, all of which I sent to voicemail. There was also a short text from my aunt, Lisa. "Ryan, won't you think about the family?" I smirked with disdain. In my family, thinking about the family always meant sacrificing myself to fulfill the wishes of others. As I looked out the window, I spotted my parents' car pulling into the driveway, followed closely by Uncle David and Aunt Lisa. "Look, everyone's back," my nieces squealed, racing toward the door. I grabbed my bag and watched as they joyfully reunited with my parents and relatives. Just then, my father, Mark, approached me.
I don't need an explanation.
I'm leaving, I said firmly.
But it's Christmas. Mark pleaded. Let's spend time as a family. Family? Now I know what you think of me, just a convenient tool.
Don't use me ever again, I replied, saying my goodbyes to the children before quietly slipping out through the back door. As I got into my car, I could hear raised voices coming from inside the house.
It was Jamie, scolding Mark and David.
I took a deep breath and drove away, my heart a mix of anger and sadness, but also a strange sense of liberation. I had finally stood up for myself.
The day after Christmas, I spent a quiet morning in my apartment.
I responded promptly to messages from friends but ignored any from my family. After the events of the previous day, I wanted to keep my distance. However, in the afternoon, while casually scrolling through Facebook, my heart clenched with anger. My father had posted, "It was a sad Christmas. It hurts to know someone doesn't care about their own family." The children were disappointed, and the plans were ruined. I never thought our family bond could be so fragile. The post garnered numerous comments, many of which were critical of me.
What a pity. The younger generation lacks responsibility. They can't even think about the children. Family is the most important thing. It's sad when someone doesn't understand that. Trembling with rage, I took screenshots.
My father hadn't named me explicitly, but it was clear the post was about me, and it completely twisted the truth.
Driven by anger, I composed a lengthy post on my own Facebook page. It's time to set the record straight.
Yesterday, I visited my family home for Christmas. However, upon arrival, my parents, uncle, and aunt had already left for vacation, expecting me to take care of 3 children for a week despite my explicit refusal.
I threatened to report them for child neglect, and they reluctantly returned.
I have been accused of not caring about my family. In reality, it is they who do not respect my time and choices. I am neither their toy nor a free babysitter available at their convenience. Family is about mutual respect. One-sided demands and manipulation do not qualify as such. I knew that publishing this might irreparably damage my relationship with my family, but I felt a need to speak the truth.
With trembling fingers, I pressed post. The reactions were immediate. First, Gary commented, "You did the right thing."
Then messages of support from other friends followed.
Surprisingly, responses from my family also began to arrive.
The first reply came from my grandmother, Francine.
"Ryan, can you call me? We need to talk."
Shortly after, my grandfather, Bernard, commented, "Mark, Jamie, David, Lisa, I am disappointed in you all.
You should apologize to Ryan."
Knowing that my respected grandparents were on my side provided me with some relief. I quickly called my grandmother. "Ryan, that was rough," she said, her voice warm.
"Yes, Grandma, it was really awful. I've spoken to Mark, his actions are inexcusable, as are Jamie's. David and Lisa are equally to blame."
"Everyone's blaming me like I'm the villain," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "They are wrong," my grandmother stated firmly. "You only protected your rights as an adult.
Their actions were also irresponsible towards the children. I don't know what to do. Keep your distance for now.
They need time to reflect. Your grandfather and I will handle things appropriately with them." I thanked my grandmother for her support and hung up, but my relief didn't last long.
That night, my social media overflowed with criticism from my family. Mark accused me of shamelessly airing family issues in public. Jamie advised me to grow up. David and Lisa blamed me for betraying the family.
Then a wave of critical comments from other cousins, aunts, and uncles followed. At the same time, my post unexpectedly spread further. Not only had my Facebook friends seen it, but their friends shared it too, and many people sympathized with my situation.
I've had similar experiences. Just because they're family doesn't mean you have to continue a disrespectful relationship.
"You acted correctly," was among the hundreds of supportive comments I received throughout the night. My smartphone buzzed incessantly with notifications, and eventually, I turned it off and went to sleep. The next morning, they've been using you for a long time. I think we should consider taking this matter to a legal standpoint.
I frowned at the suggestion. A legal standpoint? That felt like it might be going too far.
However, my opinion quickly shifted that night. I continued to ignore calls from my father but decided to open an email from my mother. The contents infuriated me. "Ryan, we have apologized publicly, but you also need to reconsider your actions.
Threatening to call the police for child neglect is excessive. We just wanted you to look after the children for a few days. Your overreaction has embarrassed the entire family.
I will no longer allow you to attend family gatherings."
After reading this email, my anger reached its peak.
They had apologized superficially, but in reality, they continued to blame me and even tried to exclude me from the family.
I immediately called my grandmother. "Grandma, Mom just sent me this email." Her voice was visibly angry upon hearing about the email. "This is unacceptable. They haven't learned anything.
Ryan, you should consult with a lawyer."
Encouraged by my grandmother's advice, I met with a family law attorney the next day.
The lawyer listened carefully to my situation and pointed out that the issues were more serious than I had initially thought.
"Mr. Thompson, this isn't just a simple family dispute," Attorney Victor Gale said.
"The behavior of your parents, uncle, and aunt can be considered psychological harassment.
Especially the defamation on social media against you could potentially be libel. Should I really sue?" I asked, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. "Let's start by sending them a warning letter. We'll notify them that if they continue this harassment, legal action will be taken."
I agreed, and the lawyer sent a formal warning to my parents, Uncle David, and Aunt Lisa. However, this action further escalated the situation. After receiving the warning letter, Mark became even more aggressive. He posted on social media that I was an ungrateful son trying to sue my family. Jamie described me as emotionally unstable and stated that my claims were exaggerated.
David and Lisa joined in, criticizing me for always seeking attention and claiming my story was a complete fabrication. These posts were the last straw for me.
I consulted with my lawyer again and decided to file a lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress. "Mr. Thompson, I understand this decision isn't easy," Attorney Gale said kindly, "but it's necessary to protect you." On the day the lawsuit was filed, I was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. I loved my family, but their actions were unforgivable. This was not just a one-time event but a pattern of exploitation and lack of respect that had gone on for years. My grandparents fully supported my decision, they even offered to testify on my behalf in court. My nieces, Lily, Emma, and Sophie, were too young to fully understand the situation, but I continued to communicate with them, showing my love. The legal proceedings lasted for months.
During this time, my family relationships completely fractured.
My parents, Uncle David, and Aunt Lisa cut off contact with me, while the rest of the family was forced to take sides. Many relatives sided with my parents due to family unity, but my grandparents and a few cousins supported me. The trial progressed more quickly than expected. My lawyer clearly presented the long-term pattern of behavior, the Christmas incident, and the subsequent harassment on social media. The testimony of my grandparents was particularly effective as they detailed the history of how I had been treated within the family. The most shocking evidence was the screenshots of social media posts by Mark, Jamie, David, and Lisa, along with records of the insulting messages they had sent to me.
These clearly demonstrated malicious harassment.
The judge ultimately recognized my claims, issuing a restraining order against my parents, uncle, and aunt, and awarded significant damages for defamation and emotional distress.
Furthermore, they were ordered to retract their false online statements about me and post an official apology.
The court finds that the actions of Mark Thompson, Jamie Thompson, David Miller, and Lisa Miller constituted clear harassment of Ryan Thompson and caused severe emotional distress, the judge stated sternly.
Family relationships should be based on mutual respect, and the defendant's actions have violated this fundamental principle. As I left the courtroom, I felt a complex mix of emotions.
I had won my case and successfully defended my boundaries, but I also felt sorrow for possibly losing part of my family forever. "You did the right thing," my grandmother said as she hugged me. "Time may heal some things, but you always have the right to know your worth and protect yourself." Several weeks after the verdict, the lives of my parents, Uncle David, and Aunt Lisa changed drastically. The trial had been covered by the media, severely damaging their reputation in the community. Jamie lost the trust of her colleagues and was pushed into early retirement from the company where she had worked for 35 years. Mark was asked to resign from his position in the PTA and completely lost his standing in the community. The couple became socially isolated, living a life far removed from their previous luxuries. The small store run by David and Lisa saw a decline in customers, and they began facing financial difficulties. The poor reputation from social media spilled over into the offline world, and one by one, their regular customers left. Within 6 months, they were forced to close the store. They fell behind on their mortgage and eventually had to move to a cheaper apartment in the suburbs. I maintained a careful relationship with my grandparents and my nieces but had no contact with my parents or uncle and aunt. When Nicholas turned 18, he left his parents' house and moved in with me. Christine and Alexandra gradually began to distance themselves from their parents as well. Their care seemed to have been left to outside babysitters since I had left. 10 years later, I had built a successful career and was surrounded by my true family, my wife and son, whom I had chosen myself. I had gained my freedom for the first time by breaking away from my biological family. Occasionally, the pain of the past would hit me, but each time, I reassured myself that my choices were right. "I have no place in my life for those who treated me like a tool," I told my therapist. It might sound harsh, but it was necessary to protect myself. The wounds inflicted by my family never fully healed, but I continued to walk my path with pride. The fate of my parents and my uncle and aunt served as a harsh lesson to those who continuously exploit others. 15 years later, my phone buzzed on my desk. It was a text from Nicholas, now 33 and working as a software engineer across the country. "Uncle Rob, have you heard? Dad's in the hospital." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. After all these years, news about Mark still affected me. I hadn't spoken to my father in 15 years, not since the court case that had severed our relationship. "What happened?" I finally replied. "Heart attack. Mom says it's serious." I set my phone down and looked across my home office at the family photos on the wall. My wife, Elaine, and our teenage son, Max, smiled back at me from a summer vacation photo. I had built a good life, a successful marketing agency, a loving family, and peace of mind that had taken years of therapy to achieve. "Everything okay?" Elaine appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Mark's in the hospital. Heart attack." She sat on the edge of my desk. "Are you going to see him?" "I don't know," I admitted, running my hand through my salt and pepper hair. "I'm not sure I should." Later that evening, after dinner, I called my grandmother, Francine, who was now 92 but still sharp-minded. "I think you should go," she said after I explained the situation. "Not for him, but for yourself. Whatever happens, you'll know you did the right thing. You won't carry that regret." I booked a flight for the next morning. The hospital corridor seemed endless as I walked toward the cardiac unit, my footsteps echoing against the linoleum floor. When I reached room 418, I paused, my hand on the door handle, and took a deep breath. Mark looked small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. His once robust frame had withered, and his face was gaunt. He turned his head when the door opened, and recognition dawned slowly in his eyes. "Ryan," his voice was barely a whisper. "Hello, Dad." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. 15 years of absence couldn't be bridged with casual conversation. "The doctors say I might need bypass surgery," Mark finally said. I nodded, taking a seat in the chair beside the bed. "Nicholas told me." Another silence. "Your mother passed away last year," Mark said, his voice cracking. "Cancer." "I know. Nicholas told me that too." Mark's eyes filled with tears. "He's a good boy. All three of them are, but they barely speak to us anymore." "Can't say I blame them. They make their own choices, I replied.
I never tried to turn them against you.
I know.
Mark looked out the window.
That lawsuit, it changed everything.
We lost the respect of everyone.